Hi there, I'm Andrea with Write, Speak, Relate, and you can find me off YouTube at drandreatowerscott.com. I'm glad you're here today. I focus my channel on the intersection of scripture and successful families. And when we really boil it down, I help wives to take their marriage from blah to breathtaking. So I'm glad that you're here. Today, I want to talk about how to help your kids get along. So at its core, this is really about sibling rivalry and how to avoid it with our kids. So encouraging our children to be the people that God made them to be, and this is from Psalm 139, verse 14, is important. And when we do this, we can potentially reduce sibling rivalry and at the same time, positively impact their sibling relationships. When children feel valued for who they are as a person, they're less likely to try to compete with each other, and that reduces fighting. So less competition, less fighting. Less fighting means a calmer home, and we all want a calmer home. I'm sure we do. A positive relationship between our kids is even more important as they get older because they become a good resource for each other and they can support each other when the inevitable life tragedies happen. So while they don't have to be best friends, it's important for them to have a positive relationship so that they can build on that in the future when they need each other. All right, sibling rivalry is a common family dynamic. It's been studied extensively in the field of developmental psychology and in the field of communication, which is my area of specialty. Rivalry encompasses the competition and the jealousy and the conflict that crop up between siblings. Research suggests that sibling rivalry is influenced from biological, social, and environmental factors and can have lasting effects on the family relationships, of course, and as well as individual development. If you ever had sibling rivalry with one of your siblings, and then you know that that affected you as a person, not just your relationship with that person and the overall family dynamic. Understanding what causes rivalry and the impacts of it help parents to maintain an effective home and to have a positive sibling relationship fostered by parents. So for instance, if Jimmy and Johnny are playing and Jimmy wins the game, Johnny may argue about the win or try to showcase how he did better, even if he didn't win. An argument and sometimes an all-out fight follows. Each wants to be seen as the best at the game that they played. The origins of sibling rivalry can often be traced to competition for parental attention and resources. So Jimmy and Johnny may not be really arguing about the game and who won or how they played it, but they might be arguing for parental attention. According to research published by Harvard, rivalry often begins when a new sibling is born, leading to feelings of displacement in the older child, which makes total sense, right? Like a new child is born and the other one feels like they're being ousted. So this displacement can spark behaviors like regression or aggression in the child as they attempt to reclaim the parental focus. So this is when we say that kids are acting out, right? So new sibling, first child begins to throw things, call people names, throw temper tantrums, and then as the sibling gets older, they begin to accuse them of things, they throw things at them, they're not nice to them. So the truth is that the younger sibling truly does live in a different family than the older sibling. The older sibling was there for a while without the younger sibling there. So that relationship of 3 was different than the relationship of 4 or 5, etc., as more children are added to the family. Each child has unique experiences in the family, and sometimes those experiences clash. So for instance, when I was growing up, still am, but I was a people pleaser. And so I did everything my parents wanted me to do, and they were grateful, and that reinforced my desire to do everything they wanted me to do. I have one sister who was not a people pleaser. In fact, she's kind of the opposite of a people pleaser. She wanted to buck the system whenever she could. And so our experiences in the family totally clashed because I thought the family was a warm, fuzzy place to be where everybody was grateful. And she found the family to be a contentious environment where people were never grateful. So each of us wants different things. And at the same time, we also crave parental attention. So I wanted parental attention, and so did my sister, but we went about it very differently. Parental behavior is another critical factor and is the main focus of this article. Research published by the Journal of Family Psychology says that parental favoritism, whether real or perceived, can exacerbate sibling conflict. So if I feel like my sister or my brother is the family favorite, then that's going to affect how I behave in the family. So if I perceive inequity in parental treatment, then I'm more likely to develop resentment and rivalry with my siblings. So it's really important what our kids perceive in us as parents to impact their sibling rivalry. Long-term impacts of sibling rivalry. There are positive and negative consequences of sibling rivalry. So let's start with the positive. Sibling rivalry can help children develop conflict resolution skills if we're teaching them those skills. So that means that as parents, we need to intervene and teach the skills when we see they're not getting along. We need to teach them how to resolve conflict appropriately. There is an article on that on my website at drandreatowerscott.com. We also can teach them negotiation techniques, so how to negotiate for what they want. And they can also learn emotional resilience. So sometimes it's an important life skill when people don't get along with us. Let's face it, there are lots of people who don't get along with us. And so learning how to deal with that and still be a strong person is healthy. However, unresolved rivalry that is not directed in a healthy place can lead to strained relationships, lower self-esteem over time, and heightened anxiety in adulthood. So if we think that somebody's always going to challenge us, is always going to fight with us, we're going to go into adulthood feeling a high degree of anxiety. So from a parenting perspective, managing sibling rivalry effectively can help to alter those negative outcomes. Parents who model healthy conflict resolution and negotiation and provide equal attention to their children can reduce rivalry and foster cooperation. So when we, as parents with each other, model healthy conflict resolution, when they see us having conflict and resolving it well, they learn what those skills are. And we also need to provide equal attention to our children as much as possible, and that will help to reduce the rivalry. All right, so here's some specific strategies. This is probably what you were watching for this whole time. So number one, what makes each child special? So you should recognize and celebrate each child's unique strengths and interests. This reduces competition to be the best in the same domain. So according to research that I referenced earlier, children in families that promote individual achievement and value diversity in talents exhibit less rivalry. So one of the ways that we handled this as a family was to put our kids in different sports. So by having different areas of expertise and specialty, they were each the expert in their own field, and they didn't feel like they needed to compete. I see far too many families that think, well, it's a lot easier to have them do the same sport or the same activity so they're in one place and we don't have to, travel and schlep everybody to different places. But then kids are competing about that same activity, right? Like, I'm the best. No, I'm the best. I did this better. I did this better. So they're always wanting the parents' attention in that one domain. But when you separate those domains and they have different areas of expertise, then they have individual achievement and there's less rivalry about it. The best way to help our kids get along is to set the example. So we need to identify their individual gifts and talents. How did God make each of them special? What unique skill set does each of them have? Identify it and tell them often and praise them often for using those skill sets. For example, my oldest worked very hard at school, even though he had a long road due to ADHD and a few learning disabilities, but we praised him for his hard work. Over time, his brother came to see this part of his brother's personality helped him in life. He's now a successful junior in college and he's doing really, really well and he has great study habits. So his younger brother saw that his older brother worked really hard and had benefits come from that. Now, my youngest has always been a very passionate person. He feels things very deeply. So while his older brother was frustrated by this at first because this younger brother was very passionate and felt things deeply, we helped both of them to see that our younger son's exuberance serves him well for committing to his tasks and resisting people that are a bad influence. So his older brother saw in his younger brother that this passion serves him well. We want to be sure that we acknowledge our kids' gifts out loud and in front of the other sibling. So, Ryan, great job with this. This is something that is really in your skill set. God equipped you to be able to handle this. Well done. Evan, here's where you were equipped and skilled that in areas that God gave you. Well done. And explain how those items are well done. You can see how to praise your kids and thank them for what they do in a different video. I'll link it below. Once we establish their individual gifts and talents, they can begin to see those gifts and talents in their sibling. Over time, our boys began to compliment each other when they saw those traits in action. So those traits that we praised, they began to see in each other, and they began to praise each other for those actions and behaviors. They were less likely to point out things that they didn't like because it was so easy to find something good to comment on. Did it happen overnight? No. I'm sorry, it did not. But it did happen with time and diligence. And I'm totally sincere that this is what happened in my family, and it can happen in your family too. Number 2, teach your kids how to resolve conflicts. You can guide your children to resolve conflicts constructively by using calm communication and problem solving techniques. I will link below to some articles on my website that will help you to be able to teach these skills. Family members would do well to practice these communication resolution skills at home as well. So mom and dad practice these skills together. We practice them with our kids and teach them to our kids. And then we teach our kids how to practice them with each other. So we're getting 3 layers of practice with conflict resolution skills. Modeling is crucial because children learn healthy ways to handle disagreements. For some couples, they don't know how to navigate conflict in their marriage, much less teaching their kids. Marital conflict resolution admittedly has its own challenges, so it's important to get those skills handled as soon as you can as a couple. And then begin to teach your kids when you're interacting with your child, and then teach your children when they're interacting with each other. So knowing how to resolve conflict is a key in helping our kids to communicate effectively and have less sibling rivalry. Conflict is going to arise in every one of our relationships, so it's super important to know how to handle it. Understanding what the conflict is about is the first step. Helping your kids to understand what's really going on goes a long way to helping them work through their differences. So for instance, when my son was in his senior year of high school, he was really stressed with trying to get some things wrapped up at school and with his job. And he was stressed. And I noticed that he was snapping at his little brother a little bit more often. And so I took his little brother aside and I said, "Hey, Evan, Ryan's going through these things in his senior year, and it's stressful for him. And so he's just a little short-tempered right now. So that's what's really going on. So maybe you could be a little bit more patient with him, because while it sounds like he's trying to pick on you about things, he's really not. It's not about you at all. He's just letting off a little bit of extra frustration." Now, I also went to the older brother, Ryan, and I said, "Hey, Ryan, I understand you're stressed. Please don't take this out on your brother." So each of them needed to see the situation for what it was to help to navigate differences. Your children don't have to be best friends, but they do need to get along as family members. Remember, the sibling relationship is for life. Knowing how to get along is key to that positive relationship. Younger siblings don't want to be left out, so don't assume that they're not capable of resolving conflict. Lay some ground rules and take time to teach them how to identify what they're feeling and how to communicate it. Older kids don't have to be left out of this. They can work on these skills too, even if they've heard them 100 times. Set some ground rules in your home for conflict resolution. So in our home, that means no name calling, listening to understand the person, and asking for a break when they need it. So if they're getting too fired up, John Gottman calls this being flooded. If they're getting too flooded with emotion, it's okay to say, "Hey, look, I really do want to work on this, but I need a break. I can't do this right now." So those ground rules are part of our overall family rules, and they apply in all types of situations. We also want to avoid comparisons. When we compare our children, even subtly, it increases rivalry. A Journal of Marriage and Family says that it's super important to avoid favoritism and comparisons to maintain peace at home. Sibling squabbles often arise because we, as parents, have inadvertently sent the message that one child is somehow better, smarter, more important, harder working, take your pick, than the other person. So when we say things like, "Look what Susie did, Mary Jane, isn't she so smart?" We're telling Mary Jane that what Susie did is better than anything Mary Jane does. So sometimes we make more overt comparisons like, "Mark, why can't you be more like your brother?" These statements eat away at our child's self-concept and inevitably lead to more conflict with each other as they compete for parental attention. One way to avoid comparisons is to watch what we say. This is the most important way to do this. So I know it seems overly simplistic, but being careful about what we say to each child goes a long way to avoiding comparisons. Another way to avoid comparisons is to appreciate each child for his or her own self. We talked about this on the first point, right? So understand what makes each child special and praise them for it. Acknowledge them for who they are as individuals. Acknowledge that they're unique. We also want to have time alone with each child. So in addition to family time, parents should make an effort to spend individual time with each child. And when you do that, you're strengthening the bond with each child individually and reducing feelings of competition because each has your attention for an undivided period of time. Spending time alone with each child is helpful because it helps them to feel special and valuable. And we all want to feel special and valuable. When we give our child our undivided attention, it shows them that they're loved for who they are and not just because of what they do or the part of the family that they are. This one-on-one time builds a stronger bond and opens the door for your child to share their thoughts and feelings about various situations. It also reduces feelings of competition because each one knows that they have a unique and meaningful place with their parent. These moments create lasting memories and help boost their child's confidence and sense of self-worth. So I know that with my older child, he likes to fish. And so, especially when he was in high school, I'd go out fishing with him and we didn't often catch anything, but we had time together and I closed my mouth, didn't say anything. I let him talk and he used those opportunities to talk a lot. My younger son and I go to lots of jiu-jitsu tournaments. And so this is an opportunity for him to talk if we're in the car and he can talk about whatever he wants. So yesterday, for instance, he was talking about different motorcycles and different cars. And that's what was interesting to him at the time. And I loved hearing about those things. So take one-on-one time with each child whenever you can. I know that the more children you have, the more difficult this can be. I have a friend with 5 children, and when she got to 3 kids, she said, Andrea, it is really hard to get time alone with each child. And so sometimes you have to divide and conquer. So maybe you've got 3 kids. One parent takes 2 kids, the other one takes 1 kid, and you take turns swapping off who gets, one child and the other one takes the others. I know that this divide and conquer technique works. You might get grandma and grandpa or grand friends involved to take the other children so that you can have one-on-one time with a child to shower them with loving attention. Spending time alone with each child doesn't have to be difficult. So you can go for ice cream, go to the zoo, go fishing, throw a ball in the park, play frisbee, watch a sunset, take a walk after dinner. The list is endless. It doesn't have to cost money. You're just spending time. Time is what's important here, not money. So brainstorm some things you can do with your kids. I would encourage you to talk with your kids about it. Say, hey, what would you want to do one-on-one with me? Like, what's fun to you? So take time together as individual parent with individual child, and these will become cherished family traditions. You also want to encourage them first. So encourage your children to encourage each other, but that means you need to encourage your children first. So again, I'll link to the other video that I have where I talked about thanking your kids and appreciating them. You want to take time alone with each child to coach them on how to lift up their brother or sister. So you can say something like, Malachi, your brother's really worried about his math test tomorrow. Could you give him a little boost today? Then pay attention for Malachi to say something to his brother. Hopefully it looks something like, hey, Devin, I know you're going to rock that math test tomorrow. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm here to tell you that this works. It worked with my kids. It can work with your kids too. It's not overnight. It's not going to happen right away. But when you demonstrate this behavior to your kids and you help it along, they will learn to encourage each other. My kids are living proof that these steps actually work to encourage each other for a lifelong healthy relationship with less conflict and less fighting. So this encouragement helps each child to feel seen and valued. I know that each child has their own problems, but helping them to see the world outside of themselves will help to make them better citizens in the family and the world. If one of them is having a hard time, it's okay to let the other one know, like I gave in the example earlier. You might lead the sibling to prayer for the other sibling, or ask him or her on their own to pray for their brother or sister. Positive sibling relationships are not impossible, I promise, but encouraging them to encourage each other is super important, and it's not difficult. It just takes a little bit of intentionality. So finally, gratitude is another way that siblings can encourage each other and discourage fighting. When someone acknowledges that someone else has made effort, their heart is softened. So something simple like Jackie saying to her sister, Pamela, thanks for cleaning up your side of the sink. I really appreciate it. That goes a long way. She showed gratitude. She acknowledged what Pamela did. Teaching each child to show gratitude can take on a teamwork feel in the family. And I'm of the mind that a family is a team. So this works really well for me. This metaphor works really well for me. We act as a family team to encourage and show gratitude for each other. And one of the best ways to help someone feel good is to thank them. It's hard to have negative feelings for someone when there's gratitude being expressed. Your family dynamics will be completely changed if you can get everyone in a gratitude mindset. The good news is that this is really straightforward, right? This isn't difficult. This isn't your style. It may take a little bit of getting used to, but encourage them to keep trying. And you can look up 1 Peter 4:8. I'll link it below. That may be a helpful verse for you. The best way to teach our children to be grateful and to show gratitude is to do this as a parent. So we need to demonstrate it to our kids, then help our kids say it to each other. So this takes some advanced thinking sometimes, but I absolutely reassure you that it's worth the effort. You will notice the change over time. And as it becomes a habit, then move to teaching your kids to do it too. So you get into the habit of it first, then move to teaching your kids to do it. It is time well spent. I guarantee it. So some strategies for parents. I encourage you this week to pick one and get started. So figure out what makes each child special and tell them. Teach them how to resolve conflicts with each other and demonstrate them in your marriage. Avoid comparisons between your children. Again, highlight their strengths. Value time off alone with each child. So you've got this special time away with one child at a time. Encourage them first to encourage each other, and then express gratitude toward your children. So remember that sibling rivalry is a normal part of family life, but it can be managed with intentional parenting. Intentionality is the key. When we understand the causes and the consequences of sibling rivalry, we can reduce conflict and foster strong sibling relationships for the rest of their lives. The sibling bond is one of the longest lasting relationships we have in our life, and nurturing it is a valuable investment in family cohesion and individual well-being. So I hope that these strategies that I've given you are helpful. I would encourage you to go back, make the list on a piece of paper or in your notes app, pick one this week and practice each one for a week or two, and then move on to another one so that you can reduce sibling rivalry in your home and have a calm home filled with loving people. Now, before I go, lest you think that this is some Pollyanna video, my kids still fight. That's the reality. They do. They still fight once in a while. They do it differently now that they're adult. Well, one's an adult and one is nearly an adult. But they get over it quicker. They know the strategies. They have learned to walk away. They have learned to come to me. If they can't work it out, they come to me and they say, hey, Mom, he's driving me crazy and here's what's happening. And sometimes I can provide some wisdom. Hey, well, you may not know, but he's got some stuff going on behind the scenes. And so he's just a little cranky right now. So just be patient. Sometimes being able to shed that light is helpful. So I'm not saying that it's going to be this perfect little house on the prairie family forever, because it won't. However, you can greatly reduce the sibling rivalry and the conflict that's happening in your home and have a much, much calmer home when we know what each child is special for, when we're teaching effective conflict resolution, setting house rules, avoiding comparisons, spending time with each child, encouraging each other, and helping them to have close relationships with strong social skills. So I hope that this video is helpful to you. If you're new to Write, Speak, Relate and Dr. Andrea Towers Scott, I hope that you will subscribe and click the bell. And I hope I will see you here next time for more communication videos for your successful family.